Are you ready? As early as next week, many of you will have children heading back to school. I don't know if that's a nail biter or a celebration, but it's coming. Dr. Seuss says, you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself in any direction you choose. Well, today we're talking all about executive function, the part of our thinking that does the steering, and how you can guide your children and teens in building executive function and self-management skills. This is LD Expert Live. There is a lot to think about as kids head back to school this year. I'd love for you to post in the chat how you or your child are feeling about starting back. Are your kids excited? Are they fearful? What is your biggest concern? We're talking today with executive function coach Seth Perler. Seth has all kinds of tools and tips to help you and your kids navigate school and increase independence and success. Welcome to LD Expert Live, your place for answers and solutions for learning differences, dyslexia, and attention challenges. I'm your host, Jill Stowell, founder of Stowell Learning Centers and author of At Wit's End, A Parent's Guide to Ending the Struggle, Tears, and Turmoil of Learning Disabilities. This book will help you understand why some bright children and teens struggle in school and what can be done to change that permanently. To get a free copy, go to parentsatwitsend.com. Let's say hello to Lauren Ma and all of you joining us live on Facebook and YouTube. Good morning, Lauren.
Hello. Hello to everyone who is out there watching us live. Let us know that you're here and where you're checking in from. We already have a check-in from Karen. She says, good morning from Sacramento. So excited to see Seth's encore. Welcome. Parents, also, we want to know your answer to our question. How are you or your child feeling about starting back to school? Let us know by posting in the chat, as well as any questions or comments you have about today's show and for today's guest. So we'll check back in a little bit.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. If you're just joining us, this is LD Expert Live. I'm your host, Jill Stowell. Our guest today is Seth Perler. Seth is a well-known executive function coach, educator, vlogger, and just a guy who cares about seeing outside-the-box kids succeed. He helps struggling neurodiverse learners turn it around so they can function in a baffling education system and launch a successful future. His weekly blog, SethPerler.com, gives parents and teachers game-changing answers to help their students navigate school and life. Welcome, Seth. It's so fun to have you back with us.
Absolutely. So good to see you again. Really good to be here. I'm super excited.
Well, school is starting in the next week or two. It's another transitional year with lots of unknowns. Is there anything in particular about this year that you feel students and parents need to be aware of as they start school?
Yeah, there is. You and I were talking recently about this, and yeah, I have a few concerns actually, even since we talked, but they're in a few buckets that we can kind of describe pretty easily. The first one that I'll mention is it really does have to do with our kids' mental health and mental well-being and social health. And my first concern for this particular fall is that there's so much divisiveness in the United States, and I know that in other countries things may or may not be different, but in the United States, people are very divided, and there's a lot of distrust between people and anger. And there's something called a collective trauma. So as a world, as a country, even we're having collective traumas, which means that we essentially all have our nervous system in our body has a sense that things we may not be safe or we may be being threatened. And it's very important that the nervous system be on alert all the time in our life. That's how we survive. But what's happening now is everybody's on higher alert than normal. And everybody's kind of there's just a lot of divisiveness and division and anger and frustration. So my concern is that you and I, Jill, and a lot of people in this field talk a lot about parents doing their own deep inner work. Well, there are a lot of people on planet Earth that don't do their own deep inner work, that don't take responsibility for themselves, that don't have emotional regulation tools. And there are a lot of parents that have kids that are telling their kids things. I'm what my concern is that schools, school therapists, school administrators, and teachers are teachers who we need to be supported, that the teachers are not being supported enough. There aren't enough therapists and people in the school to support these teachers, to give them the time they need, the class size, the small enough class sizes that they need, the resources that they need to manage what might happen this year when kids go back to school. And then there's conflict with the kids, more conflict than usual, because everybody is so heightened and people have such different opinions. And our teachers going to be given what they need to support these kids to move through difficult conversations and conflict. And what's that going to do to our collective trauma? Anyway, our kids going to experience more trauma. Our teachers going to experience more trauma. Are more teachers going to leave the school system who we need? That we already have over 50% of teachers leave by year 5. So those are some of my concerns. My first concerns is the conflict and how prepared we are. Another concern that I have right now is the screen time. You and I were talking recently. I've been doing a lot of screen time because I'm doing some stuff on my business and my work, and I am sick of it. But I can take a break. I can say, "Oh, I'm feeling it. I'm going to get off the screen, go for a walk, take care of myself." But kids are expected, if they're doing hybrid or if they're online, to be with that screen for X amount of hours for X amount of days. It's not good. Not only is there, well, the lack of connection, of human connection when you're doing screen time, or less human connection, I should say, but it's not good. I don't feel like that's a concern of mine, that it's too much screen time, that there's going to be more screen addiction, also more just sort of, we're just going through the motions. We're going to give this homework. Our kids are going to sit in front of this thing and act like something's happening when the quality of it is so diminished. And I don't think that we should stop education right now or anything, or just be in person if people are unsafe or something like that. That's not a solution. But it is a very, very real problem that concerns me, how much screen time they're experiencing. So I do fear for the screen time. And then I also fear for the loss of education. Now, I don't like that term, but just that it is a loss. It is not in any way, shape, or form as good as it could or should be. And the system without times like this already has a lot of dysfunction and a lot of amazing teachers who are lifesavers and who do so much good. But there's a lot that's lacking still. This is just making it even worse. So I just want our kids to be happy and successful and have good lives. And those are I think the biggest ones that pop out to me. So screen, the emotional stuff and not having enough supports in place. And the third one, which isn't coming into my mind right now because I just woke up and used my brain too much to say those 3 things.
The loss of learning. And I think everybody's been really concerned about that too for the last year. It's interesting. You talk about this emotional piece, and I think building an awareness within our families. If we can, as we send our kids off to school, if they're going, well, whether they're going back into the classroom or online, kind of helping kids see not just their perspective of the challenges, but how hard it is for teachers and how hard they're working trying to figure it out. I saw I was watching the Olympics, and they were talking about how the Tokyo Olympics are like the Olympics of kindness, that the athletes are all supporting each other from different countries so incredibly well. And so maybe we want to, just kind of set our kids up and say, you know what, it's still a really tricky year, and it's really hard for teachers too. So, how can we be kind to each other? How can we be kind to our teachers, just to kind of set it up? And then you said something about with the screen time. Screen time is so stressful on our nervous system, and you mentioned, that you can get up and take a walk. And really, parents, if your kids are in a hybrid or still on online school, taking a walk is immediately down regulating to the nervous system. So when your child has a little break, make sure that they get up and they move and they walk. It will help with some of that intensity and screen fatigue. So, Seth, in general, as kids start back to school, I think a lot of kids are starting on site. In general, as kids start back to school, what advice do you have for students just to set themselves up for a successful school year?
The one other fourth concern that I wanted to mention while you were talking is the unknowns.
Mhm.
It seems like we're going down a road. It seems like a nice, clear road. We seem to have some certainty. We don't. We don't know what's going to happen. And that concerns me too. So back to your question, what can we do to set them up for success? Well, I think what you just said is brilliant. Priming, having pre-conversations, having conversations before we ever even set foot in the school about kindness, about generosity, understanding, compassion, empathy, having a lot of conversations around that, how to understand other people's perspectives, what might other teachers be going through, other kids be going through. Just planting the seeds, just
Mhm.
planting the seeds. And how we as adults, communicate what our values are and why we have those values and how to treat people with acceptance and understanding, and how to not take things personally and things like so. All sorts of questions to talk about. Maybe even the 4 issues that I just brought up with the kids, but those sorts of things. Have the conversations often, and when we're having the conversations, do more listening than talking, less problem solving, less rescuing, less just really trying to have curiosity. Wow, why do you feel that way, rather than jumping in. So just really holding space so
Mhm.
that they can say things and they want to tell us things when things are really hard to tell us. They know that we're listening, because a lot of times a lot of kids feel like they're not being validated. So, but you asked for my guidance for kids specifically.
Mhm.
So we have elementary, middle, high school, and college kids. We have these different ages that have sort of different expectations. But in any of those situations, what my guidance for the kids would be for any of those situations is, number one, to declutter, downsize, and minimize your life. Get rid of the old books, the old toys, the old clothes, the old everything, stuff under the bed, stuff in the closet, stuff digitally. So get rid of physical stuff, get rid of digital stuff. Now, I work with kids with executive function challenges. So my part of my philosophy is, the more stuff they have, the more stuff they have to manage. And these are kids who already struggle to organize, struggle to manage things. So to me, it really starts with decluttering, and then we can work on the managing. So I would wish, if I had a magic wand and the students wanted to prep for this year, is get rid of old stuff you really don't need. Stuff you want, fine, archive it, put it in storage, whatever. but really I would wish that their spaces were pretty downsized to what they really want to have in their life and need to have in their life, so that once they start getting all the assignments, or they need a big clean desk or table to work at, that they are making sense. Their brains are able to make sense with an uncluttered space. But you also have digital clutter. So you have physical clutter in the space. You also have digital clutter, and you also have mental clutter. And as far as digital clutter is concerned, my advice to the kids, I would be starting, and this is what I do with the students that I work with. We start decluttering. We unsubscribe from things that they never open. We talk about digital safety. We go through the email inbox, get it cleaned up, teach them how to organize the inbox, how to make labels, little things like that. But decluttering digitally, and then decluttering mentally or emotionally would be, us supporting them. And I'm not going to get into that, but so I would start with the decluttering. And then once we're decluttered, then I would start building the systems. Now, when I talk about parents and teachers out there, I use a term called Frankenstudy. And I made that up inspired by Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat guitar, where I like guitars, and he used parts from a bunch of different guitars. But what we can often do as adults is we can say to kids, hey, this is how to use a 3-ring binder, and this is the planner you're going to use. And there's no buy-in and no ownership and no guidance. Now, kids who are more linear, or more systems thinkers more naturally, they seem to pick up on this stuff through osmosis, whereas the kids who struggle with executive function, they can look like they're being willful, or like they're not motivated, or like they don't try hard enough. And those are big misunderstandings. They do not know. They need guidance in how to systematize. So my number 2 thing for these students, guidance to them, would be to create their systems for organization. How are you going to organize your socks and your shoes and your papers and your folders and your binders and your books and your digital world? So creating systems mindfully, thoughtfully, intentionally before school starts. Because what often happens is school starts, things seem organized, but what happens, and then especially with middle and high schoolers, they're like, leave me alone, mom, dad, I don't want your help. And you have to have that relationship and that buy-in to be like, well, sorry, for the next 6 weeks, we're going to meet with you once a week, and we're going to go through the entire backpack, help you reorganize it, help you reorganize your desk, and help you reorganize your digital world. If y'all did that for 6 weeks, and sort of made it a thing, then that would really help. Because, and then not telling them what to do and where to put the paper and whatever, but very patiently guiding them to take the ownership and the buy-in. And what I do when I'm working with clients is I'm like, where should that paper go? Why? Cool. I like your idea. That's a good idea. Okay, where should that paper go? Oh, you want to throw it away? Are you sure you don't need it? Do you want your name on this paper? And so it's a very long process, but I'm asking a lot of questions, so that they're taking the ownership and the buy-in. And I can let them be wrong. They can say, oh yeah, I can throw this away, and I can let them throw it away. And in my mind, I might know that it needs to be turned in, because I may have seen the online grade book and I know that it's a 0 in the grade book. So I keep that in my mind, so that before the end of the night, we're not going to actually throw it away. But we have to give them that space, because what often happens is that we'll see, they say, oh, I need that paper. That's the magic. So we have to really be aware of how much we're rescuing or enabling or saving when we're in these processes, and how much we're sort of interfering with the process by adding in our own 2 cents when we shouldn't. Now, there are times we should, but I just really want to stress to be really mindful about biting our tongues, and really allowing the ownership and buy-in and the mistakes to happen in safe ways. But we want to start building systems for organization, systems for organizing digital data, systems for organizing your links, your passwords, all this stuff proactively. I want my students to do it proactively. I don't want them to wait until it's 8 weeks in, they have 4 Fs and 2 As, and now we have to start figuring out where the breakdowns are. Proactively build in your digital systems, your links to the teacher portals, to all the portals they need, all the passwords, all that stuff. We should ideally never say to a kid, what's your password for that? And then say, I don't know, I haven't checked it this whole school year. And I have had so many clients who come to me in like November, and that's the case. So we want to be proactive, declutter, then organize systems for planning, systems for organizing. And the last system I'd probably say is systems for advocacy. So proactively, kids knowing how to reach out to teachers and say, hey, I don't understand where the homework is. I need some help here. I'm struggling with the content. I didn't have time to do the homework, or proactive from the parents saying, hey, my kiddo didn't do the homework last night and we're not going to do it. We can't do this. So, we just had too much in the family right now and there's a lot of stress, and please don't fail the kid for this and ding them with a 0. We don't have the capacity and we're not trying. We are doing everything we can to do what you're asking, but we don't have it today. And we're going to have to do a lot of that this fall.
Definitely. And I think something really, really important that you said in there is that you're doing this together. The student has to buy in. If they don't buy in and you just tell them, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, they're not going to use those systems. They have to be a part of creating them. And so all of those questions are really helpful. And it does take time. So, it's sort of like front loading the year, taking the time now to ask those questions, let them do the thinking, let them kind of guide them in creating their systems. And everything will go smoother then for the rest of the year if you take that time now. So,
yeah.
Well,
and I love
Seth,
the word front loading. That's one of my favorite words. And while we're on that, front loading the planner and the calendar, whether it's digital or paper calendar, I don't care. But every single thing that can get in the calendar for the entire year, I do set up with my students proactively. So we get the big wall calendars. I get that. I try to get every single family to have the large wall calendars. They're desk calendars. They have 2 holes on them. They're $5 at any office store, black and white, simple. But we front load the whole year. We highlight, block out every single day off for the whole year. I want the kid to be in the process of this. There are kids there. I've had high schoolers who don't even know that when they look at a calendar, like we'll be doing it and they'll say, oh, this month, the 30th is on a Wednesday. It doesn't end on a Sunday, because some kids actually think like it just ends on the last block of, like it's amazing that some kids still don't know how calendars work. And then you get to see, oh, they didn't even know this. Now we can teach them that. But I want them to front load the whole school year. Look at the school academic calendar, and every day off we block out with a highlighter. We might write in, on Valentine's Day, a kid might put a heart in. On New Year's, they might put a little decoration. But either way, I want them to front load. And it's amazing, parents, when you see them start to front load, that how it comes together in a more concrete way of what they're getting into for the year, what is school year means, how many days there are, what they can look forward to, the times when they have off. Just please hear me. It is an amazing process that really works. Again, digital or paper, I don't really care, but for them to take time to be a part of the process of front loading, and you can do a lot of it for them, but they need to be part of the process. So if it takes them forever, for example, to take a straight edge, and they want a straight edge and make all the lines on the things, and they do 1 line and you do 3, for example, cool. But so that's what I got there. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's just, I love that word, front loading, in the calendar, in the planner, and with their materials. But
that's huge about the calendar. And I actually, for kids that really struggle with time, I love the wall calendar because now they can see really large. They can get a whole perspective as opposed to the little pieces. Even our teens can only see 2 or 3 days in advance in their mind. They can't see very far in the future. I remember I used to say about my son, he couldn't see past his nose. And that's really true about teenagers. They really can't. So having a big calendar where everything's on there and they can look and get the whole picture is really, really helpful. And spending all that time with it in advance, then they understand it better. Because you're right, we've run into brilliant kids who didn't understand how a
Yes.
planner or a calendar was put together.
hmm
So we can't make any assumptions, and really working with it together is great. Hey, Seth, I really want to talk about the conference that's coming up. So, parents, August 20th through the 22nd, so it's coming up really soon, Seth will be hosting the Executive Function Online Summit, TEFOS for short. This is an incredible free resource for you that will give you practical understanding and tools for helping your kids build executive function skills. So, Seth, I would love for you to tell us about that.
Yeah. What was it? Bit.ly/Stowell.
We'll put it up again so that
So, okay. Yeah, I know this is live too. So, for those of you who are going to check it out right now, our site crashed last night for the first time. And we're having a lot of people visiting, and it's really frustrating. So, if you go right now, it'll be back up if it's not up right now. Super sorry about that. So, TEFOS, the Executive Function Online Summit, I created 3 years ago, and I'm super excited about it. Jill's on it this year, and Jill was amazing, is amazing, but the session is amazing. But we have about 23 experts who go into detail about things under the umbrella of executive function. So if you have a kiddo who struggles with executive function, who struggles with organization, time management, getting things done, they have a lot of zeros or incomplete work or late work, or they have a pattern of a dip where they start off the school year, everything's fine for 2 weeks, but then they take a dip, and then 6 weeks later, you, the parent, notice that they have a bunch of missings and Fs and stuff like that, and then they're swimming upstream the rest of the semester. That sort of pattern, these kids who struggle with executive function, it doesn't fix itself. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to get the term executive function into the vernacular in a way that's meaningful. Right now, a lot of people kind of toss it around. 10 years ago, nobody even used it. And there was so much more shame because of the misunderstanding of, oh, the kid's just lazy. They're just unmotivated. They're just undisciplined. They just don't care about school. They just don't try hard enough. And that shame is so corrosive. And I cannot stand to see these kids suffer and be shamed and then start to internalize it and feel like I'm bad or I'm stupid or I'm not good enough or I can't do it or I give up. And then the snowball effect of that over years in terms of their schooling and then their careers and their lives and their relationships is tremendous. So I wanted to get it in the vernacular where people can say, oh, executive function is a really complex idea, but I have a great grasp on it and I know how to help my kid. And we can now have meaningful conversations with educators and other parents and people for how to support our kid. So this summit, we have these experts who come and talk in really great conversations, but I was super, and Joe will tell you this, really stuck on practical. I want parents to walk away with practical. You're going to walk away with a lot of theory and a lot of knowledge, but what can you do? So every speaker I kept saying, what can you do? What can parents do? What can they say? What can they do? So that's what the summit is, August 20th. Register if the site is working correctly. Hopefully it is. But it's a free summit. You can buy it if you want, but it's free for 3 days plus a bonus day. And if you invest yourself in that weekend, you don't have to do everything, but if you really put some time into it, you will walk away saying, wow, I get my kid a little bit more. I have better ways of supporting them. I feel more empowered.
Well, I think it's going to be amazing. And I have seen some of the list of speakers that you have, and there's just going to be such great information. So August 20th through 22nd, I really encourage parents to mark that on the calendar. If you're just joining us, this is LD Expert Live. I'm Jill Stowell, founder of Stowell Learning Centers, and my guest today is Executive Function and 2E coach, Seth Perler. We're talking about all kinds of things around executive function, and I know this is a very hot topic, so I want to take a moment to check in with Lauren and our live viewers.
Hello. Well, yes, we have a lot of interaction in the chat. A lot of people just saying thank you for this. And they can't wait for the summit, which is great. We have Karen saying, I'm so excited to see Jill attend TEFOS. My calendar is already blocked out for the summit. Sorry, I'm geeking out.
Good.
Andrea,
The way
so
to do it.
glad to be here today. Can't wait for August 20th. August 20th cannot come soon enough, let me tell you. And we posted the link to the summit. And again, I understand if the site is down, but you can save that link. You can open the window and save it to register when the site is back up. You're just so popular, Seth. That's the problem. We just
Well, we
crash
have
the
a lot of
internet.
great people serving.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. It's definitely in high demand. So we have a couple of people checking in from all over the country, really. We have Cherry from South Carolina. Welcome. We have Carrie from Utah. Welcome. We have Andrea from Vegas. Hello. And we have responses. We kind of have opposite ends of the spectrum as far as our responses to our question. How are your kids or you feeling about heading back to school? Karen says, my 8th grade son says he feels chill about going back, which is
Cool.
the way we want things, the little chili beans there. We have Andrea, another Andrea, saying my 14-year-old feels great about returning to school. We have, let's see, Amy saying mine both feel nervous, stressed, and excited, kind of new things, a different year. Totally understand that. And then we have some parents that are talking about, Amy also elaborates, my 8th grader has a ton of what if anxiety. So like a lot of thinking about like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And that can happen any school year just because it is new. It might be a different school, different situation, but especially this year with kind of everything different and new, that definitely makes sense. Jennifer saying my 5th grader is excited now, but usually anxiety hits on the first day of school, which makes sense. Exactly what we're talking about, that, kiddos don't have the capacity to think that far in advance. And so, right now it might feel something, oh, it's exciting. And then, when the first day arrives, then they can actually think about what's to come. So that makes sense. We have, let's see. Jan has kind of a longer comment, and then also there's a question embedded in here, so I want to address that or just get some advice for her. She says, my 4th grader wanted to go back to in-person school. He disliked our online school because it just did not meet his social and emotional needs. Now that it is only 2 weeks away, he has lost all motivation for anything. Maybe he is masking his anxiety, but he seems to become grumpy and stubborn when we even discuss school. Purchasing new supplies and clothes does nothing to lighten the mood. He won't discuss his emotions and feelings behind it. It is affecting my 1st grader, who should be really, and then her comment got cut off, I have this, should be really excited to finally go to in-person school. So do we have any advice for kiddos that are kind of in that boat? Again, this is about a 9-10-year-old 4th grader, incoming 4th grader, that, he is anxious and rightly so. Things are different and it's going to be different this year.
Jill, where does your mind go first?
I suspect that grumpiness, really does have to do with anxiety about what to expect, and is he going to be able to do it, and it in a very non-threatening time, just a very chill time of day, it would be good to just sit down and say, hey, I noticed you were really excited to go back to school, and now, it seems like you're not so much. Tell me about that. And then just be quiet. It's very interesting how we phrase our question to kids. It will open up doors or close doors. And I've just found that particular way of phrasing it, I notice, tell me about that. And then just giving them the opportunity to start talking when they're ready, seems to kind of open the doors so that maybe he can start to express some of those fears or anxieties that are coming up.
Great
Excellent.
advice.
I like how you're doing what I was talking about before, which is asking questions, doing a
Mhm.
lot more listening than talking. So what happens is we can get as adults really, we see their anxiety and we want them to not feel that way. So our intentions are really good, and then we try to use logic and reason to say, oh, don't feel that way, it's going to be fine, blah blah blah. And rather than allowing them to process, because they need to process, it's not just words and thoughts, it's also in their nervous system.
Mhm.
Okay, it's in their nervous system. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score that describes this really well. There's a lot of great books, but that's a good one you might like. But when we have thoughts about something, what happens is if we perceive in our thoughts, in our story, in our narrative, that there might be a threat, that we might not be safe, that signals to a small part of the brain called the amygdala, about 3 or 4 inches behind my eyes. There's the amygdala, and that amygdala will send a message to my adrenal glands on top of my kidneys here, and the adrenal glands will send adrenaline to my heart, which will send adrenaline to my muscular system, so that I'm ready for fight or flight, which are very active
Mhm.
states, or freeze, which is a very closed down, shut down, frozen state. So either way, we're in a state of, people use the word anxiety, we're in a state of fear, of feeling unsafe. So, and then what's happening here, it's what a great story, because what you get to see through the story with the nervous system is that one kiddo is having a nervous system experience, and the younger kiddo is seeing this and doing what's called co-regulating. And they're noticing their nervous system, forgetting language. Their nervous system is saying, hey, my sibling's nervous system is unsafe. Maybe I'm not safe. And then we have the child has the story and the narrative and the words to sort of describe that they're not as excited or about school this year when they're seeing this one. But it starts with that nervous system. Their nervous system is
Mhm.
feeling, oh my gosh, maybe this isn't safe. Forgetting words, they don't care what their parents are saying, everything's fine, it's going to be great. They don't care about that. The nervous system is saying, well, I don't. I'm noticing that sibling of mine who I trust feels unsafe. So maybe I'm not. So that's what's going on. That's a very basic idea of what's going on, but allowing them to process and really holding space and having conversations over and over. And again, doing a lot more listening and biting your tongue and saying, tell me more. And what Jill said, I noticed the words I noticed. For those of you that like to take notes, jot those 2 words down. I noticed dot, dot, dot. I noticed when I talked about school, your body did this, your shoulders did this, your face did this, your tone of voice changed like this. You said these words. What did you notice? And then leave especially if you have an introverted or a quieter child, leave a lot of space. And then when you're ready to respond to their response, don't. Leave more space and see if more comes out, especially for those kids that don't talk a lot. You have to leave a lot of space. It takes a long time for them to process the thoughts, to articulate them. They may not give you much, and you just want to keep saying, tell me more, tell me more. And if they're not telling you more, you want to say, I am here for you. I love you. I have got your back. I will be back, and I'm going to ask you in 10 minutes, or I'm going to ask you tonight after dinner. And I want you to think about it. And I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to let you talk, or I'm going to ask you this weekend and sit down with you, or we're going to go for a walk. But you have to prime them so that they kind of know it's coming. So if they're not saying anything, to really say, I am not just going to drop this conversation. I'm here for you. I will give you space. You take time to think about it. I'll ask you again. And they may not even give you a lot at that time, but you keep doing this. And I've worked with a lot of kids who don't say much, and it takes a while and a lot of persistence. But you have to keep essentially saying to their nervous system, is saying to them, hey, I'm here for you. I'm going to hold space. You can tell me anything. I'm not going to invalidate you or interrupt you or tell you the logic and the reason, and which is pretty invalidating, but I'm going to keep holding space. Now, should you say something and respond sometimes? Of course, I'm not being black and white about this. But generally speaking, we say way too much. So just want to really encourage you to practice holding that space so that they can process. And I do want to go on to one other thing related to this, Jill. Did you want to pop in?
No, that's great. Keep going.
So years ago, I was in a coma, and I came out of the coma, and I started having anxiety attacks and panic attacks from basically in the coma. I was on a respirator. I couldn't breathe for 9 days, and I couldn't walk afterwards. I was in a wheelchair. I didn't. My body had essentially eaten itself, and I was atrophied and what have you. I come out, and this is about in around 2000. I come out of it, and I start having all this anxiety and panic. I didn't know what the heck was going on. But, I was on a respirator and I couldn't breathe, and I started having a lot of panic around breathing. I thought I wasn't getting enough oxygen, and this lasted for years. And this is when I really started to meditate. I got a therapist who taught me to meditate and did what's called EMDR and somatic approaches and all this stuff that we don't need to go into depth about right now. But one of the things that I learned during that time is that every anxiety and every fear I had, and this is related to the person whose comment you read before, where the person said that their child is having a lot of what ifs. And for those of you taking notes, you might want to jot this down, that fear is about what if. So somebody taught me that at that time when I was going through this, and it was a game changer, that every single fear I had is a what if. And I'm going to give you a tool that you can use with this, parents, with your child or with yourself around this. That was so game changing for me. And it seems so simple, but it's not, because the mind is very powerful. So when your child is saying, what if, that is a practice. They are practicing. And we default to the negative because we want to survive, but the brain does default to the negative anyway. So it's extra hard to get our brains to default to the positive. So we have to work on this. But the what if, that's very normal. That's very appropriate response. That's actually, they're giving you a lot of great information. So their mind, their story, their narrative is saying, what if this bad thing happens? What if that bad thing happens? What if this bad thing happens? Anxiety and panic are always about a what if question. Always, 100%. What if this bad thing happens? What if this good thing doesn't happen? It's always a what if. So I'm going to say that again for those of you taking notes. Anxiety is always about what if. Why is that so powerful? For me, it's so powerful because if I can identify the what if, then I can reverse the what if. Okay. If I can identify the what if, then I can reverse the what if. What I want to caution you parents against is using logic and reason to solve the what if for them all the time. But what I do want to encourage you to do is ask the question. And then I want you also to model your own what if of the opposite. I'll give you an example. I told you my fears at the beginning of this call. What if the kids go back to school and they have a lot of conflict and it's on the playground and the teachers, and there's not enough teachers on the playground, they don't see the conflict, kids are being shamed, kids are being bullied, kids are misunderstanding each other, and they're not being given the guidance that they need to work through problems in healthy ways. What if these things happen? So that's the fear that causes me anxiety. Okay, so what's the opposite of that? The opposite is, what if the teachers are given the resources they need? What if there are more therapists in the school this fall? What if administrators are really working on mental health issues and are really aware of this? What if, as a country or a world, this stuff is brought to the surface and we really take care of our kids? What if more teachers are on recess duty and are paid better and are distributed around the playground, or more volunteers are? What if we have something called trauma-informed schools with trauma-informed parents? A huge one for me, Jill. What if that starts happening more this year? And this is an opportunity for that. What if these kids have really great experiences in learning to process things through these things that seem like big challenges, but they're really held and given space to do this? Now, let me give you a more practical one. Okay. What if the kid doesn't like me? What if the kid hates me? What if I fail this class? These are more practical. Okay. What if I go to school and I don't make any new friends? What if I go to school and I want to go home and I can't go home? So the opposite of those might be, with your child. What if I make some new friends that are lifelong friends? What if I really have some great teachers this year? What if I really learn a lot of cool stuff this year? What if I laugh a lot this year? So now you want to deal with this on a fear by fear situation. I'm giving you very broad categories to explain this, but in the moment with your child, when they're saying the what if, that's when we can go. So if a child says to me, Seth, what if I go to class and all the kids in the class, here's a good one. They'll say, all my teachers hate me. I've had kids say that. All my teachers hate me. So Seth, what if I go to school and this teacher hates me and I try to turn in the paper and the teacher says I won't accept it, it's a 0. Then I could say, then I'm not going to give them the answer. I'm not going to be like, well, what if this? I'm going to say, tell me more. Well, this teacher doesn't like me. And in fact, I know they hate me. Okay, cool. Tell me more. Why do you think they hate you? Well, I think they hate me because blah, blah, blah. Now, the reason that the kid gives may be that they're really sensitive to something that didn't even exist. That the teacher made a face at them and the teacher really it just didn't make any face at them. That's just their face or something. So teenagers, in fact, often will read more threat from I forget from flat affects. They'll read into it more threat than normal when there is no threat. So anyhow, while my teacher makes this face at me, they hate me, and they're explaining it to me. And I'm not telling the kid that's not true. I'm holding space. I'm just like, wow, tell me more, tell me more. When they're done telling me more, and I've really delved into it, then I say, okay, now tell me the fear again. Well, what if they hate me and I fail the thing? I try to turn it in, and I'm embarrassed and all this stuff. And so I'm really holding space first and really just letting them talk it through, letting them process. Then, and I might say what Jill said, I noticed when you said, I hate this class, that your body did this. They'll say, yeah, well, when I get angry, I go like that. Or, or I noticed that when you said this about the teacher, your voice went way up. Yeah, well, I'm nervous, Seth. So we're noticing things. We're just noticing, and what that helps is it helps our kids become reflective and self-aware and metacognitive rather than mindless, unconscious, not self-aware, and just sort of like a robot walking through life, not aware of what they're doing. We want them to build awareness. And that I notice is such an amazing reflective word. I notice this, that they can then, it can be brought to their consciousness and they can start to connect dots and eventually get to the point where they don't allow their emotions and their thoughts to rule them. Our emotions and our thoughts are very important guides for us. But we as humans can make mountains out of molehills and take them too far. We can obsess on things, think about things too much, try to figure things out too much, get really stuck and looping on thoughts and emotions. This can help them process more mindfully, more consciously, with more self-awareness, so that they can ideally, hopefully, come up with their own solutions. But getting back to the what if, this is then, once we're holding space, then we can start saying, so what are some other what ifs? What if, is there any other ways it could go? What if a different situation happened? Like, what if you didn't fail that paper? What might that look like? And they might say, well, I might get an A or a B, actually. I did do pretty well on this. Okay, what would it be like if you got an A or a B? And just sort of exploring that. So, but the end point is this, Jill, and everybody. We want to, again, we default to negative for a very good reason. We want to survive. So it's more important that we default to the negative just in case. That this is just a biological thing. Our nervous systems and our stories default to the negative, but we take it too far. So we have to really work hard, even as many of the adults, and put it in the chat and own it. It's cool. But if you tend to default to the negative and your family gets frustrated with you and they're like, stopping, if people ever say to you, stop being so negative, put it in the chat and own it and tell us. I bet there's a million of us here, but we default to it. And it's hard work to change the narrative and the thoughts and fake it till you make it and really default to the what if these good things happen? And what if these good things happen? Anyhow, that's my shtick on that. I just wanted to sort of respond to those two questions in a lot of depth and give them a lot of great attention, because I feel like hopefully that those two were so excellent. I feel like those can be applied to so many of the things that we were talking about today. Is that?
And I love that idea of, I mean, we do get stuck with what if, but as soon as we say, what if it doesn't happen that way? What would that look like? It's like, just even picturing that in my mind as you were going through those scenarios, I could feel myself, kind of smiling. And I mean,
Well,
our
the nervous, you were
self-talk,
down regulating, the word you
right,
used earlier, right? And
right,
then the nervous system started feeling more safe, and you're allowed to feel more joy and openness and peace.
right.
Sorry to interrupt, but
No,
it's so
I
much a nervous system thing too. I love the nervous system stuff. But as you were listening, your nervous system changed, Jill.
right,
Like literally. Like I took you through what ifs, not even knowing it because it can be subtle, but your nervous system was probably like, oh yeah, I have that fear too, Seth. And then so
yeah,
our bodies are responding, whether or not the people, you all who are watching, know this. Even through this talk, throughout your whole day, our biomarkers, our nervous systems, these different systems we're always going through these different things. The problem is we can get big spikes, and that's when we want to have tools to downregulate, or if we shouldn't and it's really a threat, how to deal with a situation in the best possible way, whatever it is, whether it's a car driving towards you honking, or whether it's a snake on the ground coming towards your foot, or whether it's somebody freaking out in a grocery store over something that that they don't have,
yeah.
what they were looking for, like what's the appropriate response in the situation.
Such great advice. I mean, and we in our centers, we deal with this all the time when we're addressing executive function. This is something I think that we've known and worked with years before COVID. I mean, because we always say like the nervous system is more powerful than the frontal lobe, or the limbic system will always win. And so you really do have to address that. When we have our learning skills continuum that we always refer to, but it mirrors brain development. Is there's a hierarchy, and our system is designed to survive, and when it perceives threat, it will respond. And then I always tell parents the frontal lobe shuts off, and that's where executive function is occurring.
Mhm.
So trying to
And it's
reason
slow, and the
right. Yeah.
anxiety part of the nervous system is
Yes.
Yeah.
so much
Yes, it's
faster.
supposed to be reactive. Absolutely. That's what our system is supposed to do. So when we come, and we're dealing with problems with our kids and they're processing it as anxiety or as a threat or any of that, we really have to make what we call a state change. So
Mhm.
we know this. You're preaching to the choir, and I love it. And I love that that's being addressed today, because so often so many parents just want to get to the top stuff. Just make him, have a concept of time, make him use a planner, make him, and it's like they're not even in that state to have all those things processed yet. So this is so important. Thank you so much for addressing that. I want to just we have just a couple more questions, just because this has been chock full of information, but I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. Marav, a YouTube viewer, is asking for any specific tips for parents who struggle with executive function.
Great question. And I could spend 5 more hours on that. But the good news is that whether your kid's in kindergarten or college or you're a parent, it really is, it's the same thing. So, and I'll break this down for you. And if you're taking notes, I'll break it down for you in a way that is meaningful to you right now, because I nerd out about this stuff and I have for years. So I'll give you a model you can jot down if you want. So what if the parents struggle with executive function? Well, what is executive function? It means we need to execute on important, complicated tasks. Great. We need to set goals. We need to pay the bills. We need to do, it could be the grocery shopping. We need to go to work. We need to manage the family. We need to get to, this person's wedding as a family all on time. And everybody has to be wearing what they're supposed to wear to the wedding. And we need to make sure the car has got execution. on complex tasks requires a lot. So like I said it earlier, it's not simple. It's doable, but it's not simple. So, but we can figure this out. And that's, again, the summit is so good for like saturating yourself and really getting over that hump. So what can parents do? Well, it's about execution. So we can break it down. Where are your breakdowns in execution? Now I use the word resistance. So we need to execute, get something done. What's the problem? The problem is resistance. So I lump all problems under resistance. The problem is resistance. What the heck does that mean? Well, then I would ask you, so what are you having trouble executing on, and where do you resist with execution? So the resistance is I don't want to, I don't feel like it. I'm going to procrastinate. I will execute later. I can't execute right now. Why? It's too abstract. It's not fun. It takes too much time. It seems overwhelming. So just ask yourself, like, what is the resistance? What is holding you back from the things you're trying to execute on? So I would start there. Pull out a piece of paper, write the top 10 things that you're struggling to execute on. And then for each of those things, write where some of your resistance areas lie. Where is the breakdown? What's blocking you? Where's the resistance? Where's the procrastination? Why is it feel unmotivating? Why is it hard? I feel disorganized. I don't even know where to start. I'm not getting the support I need to do it. I don't have what I need to do. Like, just start being very practical. What is the resistance? What is the breakdown? What's blocking you in those things? And then now we're at a place where we can start looking for solutions. And what are those solutions going to be? So here's how I break it down, and I'm going to give you the model. So we have to execute on certain things. We resist. We don't, it's overwhelming, it's stressful, whatever. There's resistance. So how do we do this? We need 3 things. And this is for a parent who struggles with it too. 3 things. 3 things. Jot this down if you want. But this is just my model. This is what works for me and how I explain it. Many other experts explain it in different ways and have brilliant explanations that are better than mine. This is just the way that I do it. We need 3 things: systems, mindsets, habits, and routines. The systems would be what I said before: declutter, minimize, get rid of stuff. Start with that. That can be thought of as a system, or as at least cleaning your systems up. You may not even have systems, but we're setting the space to build systems. Then we need to build systems. How are we going to organize the bills, the digital world, the physical world, the stuff we have in our life? Okay, systems. I mean, if you go in the kitchen, you open the cabinet and you see a stack of plates, there's a system for where the plates are. That's a very concrete system. But some of our systems where we're struggling, where parents are struggling, are more abstract than that. But there's a very clear system. You don't put the plates in the bedroom closet. Okay, so but we need to get concrete about the systems where we're having trouble and figure out, because they're not as easy to figure out. We need systems for planning, calendaring, agendas. People are like, I don't like planners. I don't need planners. I hate planners. I have a million sticky notes. I have a million to-do lists, blah, blah, blah. You need to work on the system. Me too. I mean, I have a million. I mean, I'm a lot better, but this is a place we need to spend time on. Work on our systems for planning and calendaring and scheduling. It's very important. We need to take time. It doesn't just happen. Work on the systems for organizing the stuff, the digital world, whatever. Systems. What systems do we need? Then the mindsets. The default mindset is resistance. I don't want to. This is too hard. It's too big. It's too abstract. Blah, 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 blah. Resistance. That's the mindset. What's the other mindset? You can look up Carol Dweck. Dweck is the name. And there's tons of work on mindset, but it's okay. This is overwhelming, but I can do this. I can get started. I can do it for 5 minutes. I can do it for an hour. I can do it just a little bit. I can do this one test. We need to do something to get the momentum. The worst thing to do is to do nothing. So how can we take baby steps? I'm all about baby steps. So systems, mindset. So we have the resistance mindset and then the can-do mindset, the more positive mindset that helps us. And then we need habits and routines. What good is a system and a mindset if you don't have a habit or a routine around it? And they don't just happen again. So I take time to put this in with the kids, a homework routine. a get home from school routine, a wake up routine, a go to bed routine. You know how important routines are for infants and toddlers. Well, they're really important for us adults too, but we kind of lose the routines. And you don't have to have a rigid routine. If you struggle with this stuff, don't make a rigid routine, but make routines. Make flexible routines that you can manage and set yourself up for success, but intentionally take time to make the habits and routines and build them. So to me, that's I'm trying to create change within a family. How do you do that? It's hard to change myself. How am I going to? But when we're helping families and kids, we want to give them the systems, help them with the mindsets, the narratives, the stories, and help them build routines so they can use the systems and create the change they want to have the better quality of life so that they can be happy and successful adults. And the hour's over. Have a great day. Bye, everybody. Just kidding. That is a good place to stop, though. That's the model.
That's a great advice. Definitely.
So write down on a piece of paper, what systems do I need? What mindsets do I have and how do I want them to change? And what routines and habits do I need? And start there. And where's my resistance?
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on and on. You could also be super ninja and like go to the closest people in your life and say, I'm going to ask you a weird question. If you had to give me 3 pieces of advice to make my life better and everybody's life better, what would those 3 pieces of advice be? And listen to what they say. Mm-hmm. That's hard, but powerful.
Vulnerability. I like it.
Jill, you're awesome. For those of you that aren't really familiar with Jill's a super ninja and super awesome and super talented. And dive into Jill's work because I have really spoken way too much here. And I just want to highlight you because you're just amazing. And Lauren too, but this Jill's show.
But yes, Jill is the LD expert. Well, thank you. I mean, this was great advice. If we didn't get to your questions, I apologize, but Mom Squad is a great place to post questions from and get advice from parents who get it. So Andrea, I see your question about your son, but that actually is an issue that I've seen come up before with parents about your son being very super competitive. Join our Mom Squad. That's our private Facebook group. And you can post that question there and get some advice from the parents. You can find our Mom Squad by going to Facebook groups and searching the keywords SLC Mom Squad, or go to our Facebook page and find the link, or repost it in the chat today. We also have our own parent support group, Peace. Our next meeting is in September, but we are doing our meeting on executive function. It's going to be an executive function workshop for parents. It is going to be a very interactive meeting, workshop type format, where you're bringing your actual real life problems that you're facing with your kids now that they're back to school, now that they're in school and in the thick of it. And we're going to work through those problems. And I'm going to coach you on some strategies, some language to use with your kiddos, some steps that you can implement right away. So we look forward to that. You need to go to stowellcenter.com/peace to get the link to join the Zoom meeting. And I look forward to seeing you all there.
All right. Well, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, everyone who participated. And Seth, thank you so much for being here. I know you're super busy getting the conference all set, but we always love having you.
My function is
it's being challenged now, right? Mm-hmm. So, but we just always enjoy having you and appreciate your passion and your heart for helping students and parents. So
likewise, thank you. Jill's heart is in this work. And I like that about Jill.
Well, here is Seth's contact information. He has tons of practical information for parents and teens on all different issues around executive function. So check out all of the resources on his website and YouTube channel. Don't forget, the Executive Function Online Summit is on August 20th through 22nd. Seth has put together an incredible group of speakers with a heart for helping parents and kids build executive function and successfully navigate school. So put it on your calendar. You'll get all kinds of practical tools. You do not want to miss it. This is LD Expert Live, your place for answers and solutions for learning differences, dyslexia, and attention challenges. We're live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Next Tuesday is our back to school show. You're going to get to meet some of our wonderful Stowell Learning Center team. Lauren, team members, and I can't wait to share our favorite back to school tips and strategies with you. Be sure to join us next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Stowell Learning Centers are open for both on-site and remote sessions and evaluations. We work with children and adults doing targeted brain training to permanently eliminate struggles with dyslexia, auditory processing, attention, executive function, and learning so that students can become the independent learners that they have the potential to be and just really thrive in school. If you would like a free consultation for yourself or your child, give us a call or visit our website at stowellcenter.com. Thank you again, Seth, for the Executive Function Pro tips. Thank you to all of you who are watching live or on the replay. There are so many parents looking for resources and guidance, so please share and help us spread the word about LD Expert Live and about the TEFOS Executive Function Summit. We'll see you next Tuesday to kick off the new school year.